All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 6 of The Trader's Edge. Um, been a little while since episode 5, to be honest. And Kenny and I have both been a little bit busy, but we've been excited about coming back to you. Um, I got to just quickly share. I did buy a house, so I'm getting ready to move next month, which is always a big thing. Normally, I move myself, but now I'm so old, I'm going to actually have to hire a company to do it because I'm too old to lift anything. So that's kept me busy, along with, I mentioned, I think on some previous episodes, we finally have launched a website. And I'll talk more about that during the show. Um, it's We just launched it this week. So I'll share some information. The description will be down in the link will be in the description. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the things we provide there. But we're also, excitingly, we're broadcasting, I guess, call it that, online in Kenny's Hit the Bid Room.
Pseudo live, yeah.
Pseudo live.
Yeah.
So,
Questions from the peanut gallery, if anybody.
yeah, I want to give a shout out to everybody there. I've been in Kenny's. I think I mentioned on some previous podcasts. I've been in Kenny's room. If you haven't been there before, you really got to check it out. Kenny takes you through. He's one of the best mentors in the industry, and I go in there whenever I can, and I try to learn anything I can from Kenny. Anybody that's been around for as long as Kenny has, and when you're called the grandfather of anything, you want to learn from him. So I do everything I can to learn from him. Got to meet some of the people in the room. He's got a great group of people. And that's actually what we're going to try to do with the site that I just launched. We're going to try to create a really formidable community of people. I think hopefully between the two of us, Kenny, will be a formidable force going forward in the industry at some point here as we continue to grow. So kind of exciting there. And again, as Kenny mentioned, we're going to keep an eye on the chat feature that you guys can't see, but we'll if there's any specific questions that catch our eye, we might try to address them. This is new for us. It's the first time we're doing this. So hopefully we'll make this all work. Three topics I want to mention off the top that we're going to cover. And then as Kenny's, as he calls them, his corporate overlords have told me, like, don't forget that Kenny's a star. And so you want to throw some alley-oops to Kenny, put some questions up there so he can do the follow through the alley-oop dunk. And I'll make sure to get Kenny talking here in a minute. I just want to give you the context of what we're going to be discussing. So three things we're going to talk about tonight. One of them is going to be the hot topic of today. We're broadcasting on Wednesday, the 19th. And today was NVIDIA earnings after hours. And that's going to have a lot of implications, not just for NVIDIA, but for the market in general, for various sectors. And so we want to give you some perspective on maybe how we're thinking about things and how it might help you to think about things as well. And then during the podcast, so the one is NVIDIA. Secondly, we're going to talk about specifically some sectors that might be worth paying attention to, kind of what I'm looking at based on my research, based on the people I associate with. And then thirdly, throughout the podcast, we're going to mention maybe a few stocks specifically that we're looking at. And we know that's like a big thing for people watching. They want to know, tell me what stocks you're looking at. We get that a lot. I was thinking maybe we would do it at the end of the show so that we can make sure everybody stays tuned. But then I realized we're recording, so we can't really do that. So we'll throw them in during the podcast so that you got to stay with us the whole time if you want to hear our recommendations of what's on our watch list, what's catching our eye. Okay. So those are the three topics. Anything else you want to add, Kenny, before we delve in?
I concur. Yeah. No, this is actually cool because we're doing it where it's still, the market's still open. NVIDIA has reported, and the Qs are what's ripping right now. Kind of NVIDIA stalled out, but just like we're going to talk about, what stocks are probably going to come along for the ride tomorrow if they're not already gapped up huge because the market's ripping right now, and it probably will continue to go up all night. But
Yeah.
I have some nefarious plans for this market tomorrow, if I'm right.
Oh. But don't you always have various plans?
Yeah,
That's nothing
I think
new.
my plan might be put on the shelf, but we'll see.
All right. Well, to Kenny's point, one of the things as someone who's been doing this a while as well, one of the things, when you first get started in this industry, it's like you're trying to, you know, grasp and focus on one thing and try to understand it. And then as you become more proficient, you start to realize that one event may affect other things, right? So you learn over time to kind of zoom out a little bit and say, okay, what are the implications, right? So NVIDIA, obviously everybody's looking at NVIDIA, but what does this mean now that they've come out, their earnings, their guidance, what was happening prior to their announcement, and what does it mean now? Like, how is this going to impact where people are going to be going? So, a couple of things, for those watching, I'm sure NVIDIA did beat earnings. They did come out with a solid guide, and it looks like the stock is up after hours. Um, so what does that mean, right? So to put it in context, though, one of the things you have to always remember when a company announces earnings is, what are the expectations, right, going in? And so I think one of the things that was really interesting and intriguing of what happened over the last couple weeks or so is we did see some selling in the kind of the AI trade in general recently. And I think it was a byproduct of a few things. I think this is my opinion, and I'll turn it to Kenny to see what his thoughts are. But one of the things I think the market had made a huge run, so we were due for a bit of a pullback, not uncharacteristic of the market. But you also had some other variables that were going on that started to kind of cast a little bit of doubt in the AI trade in general. It's a very crowded trade, clearly. And I think there were some things that were happening. One, the CEO of Palantir, it was mentioned that he sold his NVIDIA stock, right? And that kind of spooked a few people. The other thing, you saw was, numerous analysts coming out and beginning to question things. The incestuousness of the financing and what's going on. The other topic that was starting to be discussed had to do with asset depreciation and the fact that these chips that these companies are selling do depreciate. And as the technology continues to increase, they may be depreciating faster than anticipated. And what will that mean for company balance sheets? And is there a reckoning coming for that, right? There was a Bloomberg article that specifically discussed that. And that's kind of what Michael Burry's been talking about, right? This risk of asset depreciation on the balance sheets. So there was that factor. And then you had other people, one of JP Morgan's VPs, a guy named Daniel Pinto, he came out and said, I think the industry, the AI industry, the AI space in general, may be due for kind of like a reassessment. And what he was suggesting was, there's a lot of optimism built in, a lot of expectation, and the productivity, while we're going to, like, AI is going to change things, it may not change things as fast as some people are anticipating. And if that does happen, there might need to be a reassessment of the industry and its valuations. So you kind of have all these kind of cracks that started coming out a little bit. And some of the stocks have taken, NVIDIA pulled back a little bit, but you would expect the leader not to get hammered, right? It did pull back a little bit. But some of these other stocks in the space that we're seeing that are up after hours today, for example, CoreWeave, CRVE was one, Nebius, NBIS. Some of these stocks have pulled back, pretty significantly over the last couple of weeks. So the money was kind of, coming out of that sector. And that's kind of, again, depending on how long you've been studying markets, you'll know, like, sometimes, there's the aggregate averages, but then there's rotation within sectors. And that's one of the things I personally spend a lot of time trying to understand, because I've spoken about this before. If you're in the right sector, your life, if you're going long and you're in the right sector that people are starting to put money into, your job's a lot easier. It's a lot harder to find winners when something is out of favor, right? So the AI trade did have a little bit of exodus of money, and I believe some other sectors recently have benefited a little bit, which we'll talk about in a moment. But that was the big thing, right? The expectations were, people were a little bit on edge, right? Is Nvidia going to deliver again? They've always delivered, right? Is there going to be something that comes up where they say, oh, there might be more risk than we anticipated earlier, right? That was the big concern. And so as an investor, one of the things you have to do, depending on your investment strategy and investment objectives, is you got to determine, right, how aggressive am I going to be? I have some friends that are completely bought into the AI narrative, and they're like, this is just a huge opportunity, like this pullback, there's a chance to add, right? And then there are other people that I know that are like, hey, I think you got to be a little careful here, because if Nvidia doesn't deliver, you can get hurt pretty bad. And that's, when you're an old guy like me, you're careful about those things, right? As an older guy who has, I'm not a Donald Trump or Paul Tudor Jones or any of those guys with that kind of money, but I've done okay. And for me, my number one priority is capital preservation. So I'm not going to take risks that some people are willing to take, because I don't feel I need to. And for me, my capital is my inventory, and that's what I use to make more money. And if I deplete my capital, I'm out of business. So that's how I have to look at things. So, and that's the beauty about investing, right? Everybody's different. Everybody has different objectives. Everyone has different risk tolerances. So, again, it all depends on the way you were looking at things. But I'll just tell you one of my big takeaways from the NVIDIA release today, and it was actually posted on the new site I mentioned that we just launched. We have some, like Kenny has in his room, we have some phenomenally knowledgeable traders in that space. So I'm constantly monitoring what they're thinking, what they say. And we have a mutual friend, Kenny and I, that posted something that an analyst, his name's Dan Morgan, that he mentioned, a quote, and I just want to read it. But going into the NVIDIA results today, Morgan had brought up some concerns about what they were going to be looking at with NVIDIA's call. And the concerns he talked about were things like, CapEx, the circular financing we talked about earlier. Is that really a thing? How big is that? How big an issue is that? And the fact that there's some growing competition. So he had referenced that going into the earnings today. And I just want to read a quote that he made after the call. And then we could talk, I'll let Kenny talk, and then we could talk about the implications of what this means tomorrow and going forward. So what Morgan wrote was, while these issues were not put to rest, the ones I just mentioned, the recent print does give investors confidence that NVIDIA is still executing at a high level, and these issues can be at least punted into the Q4 2026 print. So what he was saying was, maybe these questions haven't fully been answered yet. Maybe they are still concerns, maybe, but they're not concerns in the immediate term, right? And if people are going to continue to think about these things, it's not showing up yet, right? So that was a big takeaway. And so what we're seeing after hours, we're seeing NVIDIA up. Kenny can pull the current quote. I think it's about 5% last I checked. But some of the other stocks I mentioned are also up. I mentioned CoreWeave. That thing's taken a pretty good beating recently, right? That was up after hours. NBIS, I know, was up after hours. So the whole AI trade, the whole cohort is kind of catching a bid after hours. And I think the question is going to be, is this going to be, is this going to follow through? And if so, how strong is it going to follow through, or is this going to fade? right? Is Morgan right, or are there still these concerns out there that people are going to pick apart when they go through the the guidance? Are they going to find something that's going to raise some more flags, and is the trade going to fade? I think that's the big question. So, Kenny, you want to add some thoughts here, or what do you think?
Well, the trade is the fade for me. Again, as a day trader only, I'm not looking to own tomorrow, so it's not like I need this sector to take off again. But all your points, the pin action, what stocks are, going to have some activity because of Nvidia. That's where my money is going to be looking at tomorrow. But again, I'm looking to short. So I'm taking I'm still bent on this Oracle trade from 3 months ago, which I found this to be the most ridiculous move in the history of trading. And I'm not even exaggerating. When that number came out on Oracle, and a company, a behemoth like this, which already had rallied from the 120 up to the 260 to gap, almost 35%.
Was remarkable, yeah.
I had to be a seller. I even got my dad he didn't sell the stock because he never sells, but I got him to sell some deep in the money calls.
That is a miracle, by the way, for folks listening, the fact that his father sold something.
No, he didn't sell.
He didn't.
He sold a deep in the money call.
Oh, okay.
Offset the risk.
Okay.
He never sells.
He never sells. Okay.
He doesn't want to. Now he's like, I made it this far. I'll just give everything to you. I'm like, all right, but you might as well sell every once in a while. It's okay to pay tax.
Well, he could also give it to other people too, like your buddy.
Yeah, there you go. Call my dad. He's in a place in Florida. But the premise here was this monstrous gap did what we call the Jerry Orbach. It gave it all back. And what you're looking at there is, again, very clean chart. Forget the blue line because that's the daily VWAP that's intermingled there. That orange line was the yearly VWAP, and the gap was right here. So it's just your classic old gap fill, and then it even gave back some more to roughly that 1 year VWAP. So the way I look at this market and the moment we've been in is I thought, and again, I still think that some of this froth still needs to come out. Nvidia now just pumped it again. I'm looking to play the fade. So the fade tomorrow again, and Don said it eloquently last week. It's not like I don't think Nvidia is going to $250 a share. I do. And I do believe this market's going a lot higher. I just want this temporary sell-off to continue because the capitulation causes and creates even better buy opportunities. So I have a bullish agenda on my bearishness right now. But going back to the idea, it's just a fade. If you're not fading, you're not trading. So for the day trader, you got to think about the people that did speculate on Nvidia or who have been in it. So taking your cue from Oracle, and then remember what happened with Palantir. Numbers came out. Well, you don't see it here, but the numbers came out. That stock, it had a decent upside, and then it rolled over in the aftermarket. Same kind of thing with Reddit. That kind of ran out of steam. Carvana is defying all kinds of logic, but that sold off on earnings. So I just think there's going to be a little give back. And if you remember last quarter with Apple, it gave it all back. I mean, it was an incredible move. And that was on July 31st, August 1st, that move. I do think that can happen, but this is where VWAP, and I say and again, if you're going to come to Vegas with us, my symposium, if you will, it's called VWAP Saved My Life. As a shorter, what I've learned the hard way is that shorting is short-lived and you're going to die. And you generally can't get in way to these freight trains. But more importantly, if you are a shorter and stocks break over VWAP, you have to cover because the algorithms kick in, the buy programs start, and you really just can't be a shorter. So tomorrow, this blue line and orange line, which is what I live by, that's today's VWAP, that's prior day VWAP. Those will be elevated to reflect the current value of the stock from the overnight session, and it'll take into account all this. So VWAP will be up there. So when I'm coming in tomorrow, I'm definitely looking to play this fade. And, I played the fade already once this morning, this afternoon, when it hit that 198 and then started to roll over and broke the 195. I did this trade. And again, as a day trader, you don't need to get rich. Nobody gets rich on as a day trader per se on a daily basis. You could hit some 2-baggers, 5-baggers on options, whatever. But you do 300 shares if at 195, the stock goes down 2 points, you make yourself a quick $600. That's a lot more than most people make all day or all week. Some people, I mean, and a lot of people out there struggling. We should be, again, Solid and I, my partner on Hit the Bid, we just say how lucky we are that we're either in this, we have this opportunity to take advantage of these things where a lot of people can't. So, I'm just looking for the fade. And then tomorrow, same thing. As NVIDIA goes, so goes the Qs. So if NVIDIA is rolling over, I'm probably going to be buying some, zero date options on the Qs. But all that being said, I let VWAP validate my idea. So I'm coming in tomorrow ready to look for some profit taking and some fading. But if VWAP says, nah, hold your horses, I'm probably not even going to put these trades on. I'll just let it play out and we'll see where it goes. And that's why anybody that's watching the show today, if you're in the chat room, we're going to keep the room open for the next 48 hours and it's on me. I just want you guys to be there and see how we trade over the next, 48 hours.
Kenny, let me just add a quick thing here, because I don't know, we got probably some new viewers that maybe haven't watched our shows before. I don't know why anybody wouldn't have watched all 5 of our episodes already, in their entirety. I can't imagine, but
located on my YouTube page at Hit the Bid Radio on YouTube. Yeah, we'll give you a link later.
But so again, I just want to mention a couple things in case people are newer and aren't really familiar with, because you threw out some kind of advanced terms that some people may not be familiar with. And I just want to mention, and it's important to understand this, right? We talked about the fact that not everybody trades the same way. Not everybody has the same objective. Not everybody has the same amount of time to invest in this. Kenny and I, the reason we do this podcast is we do this for a living, right? So you may be somebody who has a job and you can't sit in front of your computer all day, and that's fine. So you need to have maybe a different strategy than what Kenny and I do, because we are sitting in front of the computer all day, or you could just follow us, right? But what Kenny mentioned, as a day trader, that's where the predominant amount of Kenny's focus is in day trading. So he's going in and out of trades very quickly, and he's not necessarily looking at long-term investments, right? I tend to be a little bit more longer term in my perspectives. I call myself what the industry calls a swing trader.
Swing.
Right?
Swing traders?
Swing.
By the way, the only stock I own right now, brought to you by Don Corleone, VICR at $58, and it went promptly to 100, which is pretty amazing. We got to talk more about this because, you did have that blow off top, but tomorrow, this is one of those stocks where I think
yeah. In fact, that's one of the 3 stocks I was going to mention tonight. Is Vicor, and that's a core position for me. No pun intended, Vicor. But what Kenny's doing is he's going in and out, and he used a term that some of you may not be familiar with, and I just want to make sure you understand what he's talking about. He used the acronym VWAP. Okay, and by the way, you'll hear some people refer to it as VWAP. I'm Italian descent, so I take offense to that. So we're very specific. It's called a VWAP, and it stands for volume weighted average price. So Kenny also mentioned another person. He said my cohort Jello it's an affectionate term he refers to as one of his friends, and these guys do all of their trading off of the volume weighted average price. And Jello, if you get an opportunity to ever listen to this guy, Kenny speaks very highly of him for a reason. He's has background in IT and in technology, and so he's developed additional algorithms for the VWAP that provide perspective to help day traders. And that's one of the reasons. I mentioned this in my room. Kenny's called the grandfather of day trading for a reason, and he's been day trading since the 1990s, right? The dog father, Kenny's the dog father, which, by the way, dog is God spelled backwards, right? So, so what Kenny's genius is, I believe, one of his geniuses, is the fact that he has been able to recognize patterns off of that VWAP metric. And he mentioned, he'll casually mention when he talks, and I just want to make sure so people understand the context. He'll say the market is rigged. You'll hear him say that a lot. And what Kenny really means by it's rigged is, I use the term it's institutionalized, right? Where the algorithms today, and that's what's driving this market, in the background of these algorithms. And the algorithms use that VWAP metric. And so what Kenny's been able to identify are certain patterns that occur off of that VWAP, and he exploits that knowledge to make money. And so when he talks about that, when you go into his room or when he's on the podcast, when he talks about the VWAP, and he'll use there's a pattern he talks about called the faux show bro, which I think should be called faux show bro, but it stands for fake out, shake out, breakout. That's a pattern that that comes out of 30 plus years of experience, that Kenny's recognized the market and the algorithms tend to function in a specific way. And if you could see that, then you could use that information to make money. And that's the genius of what Kenny and Jello do. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't know how many, the viewers, some of these people, you may be new. So when Kenny's throwing out terms, don't get overwhelmed and go, oh my God, I don't know what he's talking about. That's okay. Like, that's the goal, is work with people like Kenny, associate with people. And that's why we have the rooms that we do, get around people that you can continuously learn from. And don't think you have to learn it all overnight, because you don't, right? This takes time, it takes effort, it takes work, just like anything else. If you want to do this as a vocation, like any vocation, you're going to have to put time in, you're going to have to put work in. Like, I think there's this kind of fantasy that some people have that, they're going to become a trader and they're going to buy the next Amazon and they're going to retire and they don't have to, you could just buy something and walk away and you make money. That's really not how it works. Like anything else, you're going to have to develop an understanding. You're going to have to put time in to do that. And that's the beauty of finding somebody like a Kenny, who's been around for decades, who's been able to identify these things. And, not to blow my own horn, but I spend a lot of time studying this stuff. And I associate with people that are more knowledgeable than me. And I learn from that. I'm a good learner. That's, I think, my one attribute is I'm a pretty good learner. And if you get me around somebody that's knowledgeable, I can learn from them. And that's what I've done with Kenny. I met Kenny at an event earlier this year. I approached Kenny because nobody was talking to me, as usual. And I'm like, oh, Kenny, you're the guy I saw you on the website that you were going to be here. And I read it.
Stop for a second. You guys know who we're talking to here? This is the StockTwits Person of the Year. Let's give it up one more time. We gave him an award and a bottle of tequila. Where is the bottle of tequila?
Yeah, I think they felt so bad that I didn't have any friends. They're like, we got to help this guy. But when I saw Kenny, I was like, holy cow. I went online, like, that's what I do. I was going to this event. Kenny's, was on the guest list. I'm like, what does this guy do? I went to his website. I started to research about him. And I went up to him and I'm like, oh, dude, I went on your website. You got some really good stuff. And I started, that's how I started working with him. And I learned a ton. Like, I didn't know what a faux show bro was when I met him. So that's really what we want to do here. We want to continuously educate you. That's why we do these podcasts, but also get yourself in an environment where you're learning, where you're around people that have been through this, that you can trust, because there are some, hate to say it, like any industry, there's some people out there that try to take advantage of people. There's scams out there. There's all kinds of people that'll tell you things. They'll tell you they always successful on their trades. That's a lie. Nobody's always successful on their trade. And that's one of the reasons we teach people to develop a system, right? Because you're not always going to be right. And the realization that it's okay to not always be right is critical to success in this industry. Because if you hold on too long and you try to fight the market, you're going to get crushed. If you're wrong, just admit it. It's okay. Go to the next trade. So you got to have a system to protect you. Because the biggest thing that's going to cause you to lose in this industry are catastrophic losses. And when your drawdowns are too big and you can't recover, you're out. And so that's why we teach people concepts and methodologies so that doesn't happen to you. Okay? So sorry for that rant, but I wanted to make sure I know a lot of people are new. And I'm just imagining if I was new and I was listening to you, I'd be like, what's this guy talking about?
That's okay. So actually, let me take a second here. If anybody wants to join us, I'm going to put this. The podcast should be up live tonight. Actually, I'll just get the recording, throw it up on YouTube. If you're seeing this video right now, just email me. Here's how old I am: KennyGlick@AOL.com. That's right, AOL. And I'll send you a link and a password, and you can join us for the next 48 hours on me. We got the website up and running, and it's just nothing needed. I don't need your credit card. I don't need your blood or anything like that. Just show up. And you'll hear what we do and you'll see what we do. We trade all day, all day, pretty much 24 hours a day lately because I haven't slept. Because when the market gets a little bit more volatile, that's when I do better. So I start trading futures, and you'll see that using volume weighted average price (VWAP), you could trade any instrument. And talking about the difference between day trading, swing trading, investing, if you could conquer day trading, you could just extrapolate those chart patterns to any time frame. So what works on a minute to minute also works week to week, month to month, year to year. It's all the same pattern. And you could also use VWAP on any extended period of time. That's what we've built to grab more data. And what my partner Salad has built, he's taken to a whole nother extreme where it's like minute to minute, 5 minutes, hourlies, dailies. And it really just shows you where an expected move based on VWAP is going to be. And for downside moves, I just want to show you something. It was one of the most fascinating charts of the year so far, because when the market's free falling, everybody gets a little scared, like, oh my god, where's the bottom? We knew where the bottom was, and it went there to a point where it's like, you can't believe this. And this is why we do it live at the Hit the Bid. You can't believe where it went. It went right down here. So the market's in free fall. We're going down. We're filing a downtrend. Every rally was sold in, rally sold into. Market's giving way. This is a 90-day VWAP. I'll just scrunch it up on a chart. I'll put it on a 2-hour basis. You can see, the whole debt. So this is the last time we sold off. That was the.
Kenny, I don't think it's coming up on the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. Thank you. So what you're looking at there, right? So this takes in the last 90 trading days. So that grabs that moment where I think we could see that tomorrow. Again, I'm starting to doubt it, but when we walked in, Apple was up 5 points on that Friday, and then it gave way and reversed, and the whole market came with it. That created this wonderful, what I think generational lows are. But all that data spits out this one line, and as we're tanking, we went, and again, it's been adjusted by a couple of pennies right now. You'll have to take my word for it. We were 2 cents off. This is a $500 ETF comprised of 100 different stocks, and VWAP's telling us that you're roughly going to bounce right here, and we were off by 2 whopping pennies.
You couldn't get it exactly right?
Sorry, I couldn't get it exact. But I mean, usually you're talking about anywhere near a moving average, you're feeling pretty good about it. These are when you start seeing this trading on a daily basis, and you trade VWAP exclusively in price. So, with the faux show, bro, and the opposite is what we call the finger of God. It's basically it's chart pattern recognition, market mechanics meets the VWAP. And that is really all I've come to realize it's all you need. I mean, as a trader who just used technicals, that's why it's so great that we have Don here. When he showed us, on our first podcast 6 months ago, and we were just starting to see some buying in the nuclear sector and the rare earths. And Don gave us a whole list of stocks to look out for with fundamental reasons and all this stuff. I looked at a few of these charts. I'm like, I don't care what that is, I'm in, because the chart looked so good. So for traders where it's an emotional, no matter how technically you are, emotion is always in there, right? So isn't it amazing when you could do that fundamental analysis, and then all of that knowledge then gets validated on the chart? It makes you feel better about the trade, and you're going to trade better when you're getting that validation. And to me, for a shorter, I get reminded, don't short stocks. They don't want to stay down, Kenny. Stop doing these things. But now I have VWAP saying, yeah, please don't ignore me. And I took my lumps, while I was experimenting with all this VWAP. And, my career consisted from like 1996 to 2012. And then for 3 years, I just battled the market like a nudnik, just trying to be that shorter who was going to outsmart the market, because I thought that the 2009 catastrophe, again, the government came to the rescue of the market. I thought it had run out of steam. I was completely wrong. But if I had VWAP in my life and I took it more serious at the time, and none of that would have happened. I really had a rough couple of years there. But, I'm reborn, and now this is all I swear by.
And by the way, in Kenny's room last week, in fact, Jello went through kind of like a history going back to 2000, I think it was. And he was showing how all the major market pullbacks kind of went to that support level on the VWAP.
Yep.
It was fascinating. I hope maybe someday we'll have him on and he could take people through that. It's fascinating to listen to him because of what he understands. And what he talks about is the VWAP being kind of like what the market accepts as like a fair market price, if you will, right? And that's what the algos are working off of, right? So again, Kenny mentioned a few other terms like pattern recognition. That's one of the things as a trader you're looking to do, right? You're trying to understand patterns that consistently replicate. And if you can understand those patterns, then you can utilize that information in real time and recognize what is potentially happening. And it allows you to have what we call, and that's why the show is called The Trader's Edge, right? We're all looking for an edge. And what the edge is trying to put the odds in your favor whenever you're entering a trade, right? So what Kenny mentioned, I use my edge. I use a lot of variables because I'm constantly researching. I'm constantly getting information. I'm constantly talking to other traders that are really knowledgeable. And I use like 8 different variables. I don't use them on every trade I enter. I might use 1 or 2 variables. I might use 5 variables. And what Kenny talked about, one of the things I look at are technicals, but the level of knowledge somebody like Kenny has with technicals and his ability to utilize that metric to the level that he utilizes it, that would have taken me decades to learn on my own. So why would I do that when I can associate with somebody like Kenny and I can learn from his knowledge, right? And that's how you improve your odds constantly. That's how you continuously get better, continuously learning, continuously implementing concepts that are validated. Kenny's Faux Show Bro post earnings, it has a close to a 90% success rate. Like, I don't need to be right 90% of the time to make money. I could make money being right a lot less often because of the system I have. But if I'm not trading a pattern that works 90% of the time, shame on me, right? You guys need to learn that pattern and you need to incorporate it into your trading. It's like, I don't know too many trades, too many patterns, too many setups that work 90% of the time. And if I can find that, I'm going to use that. It doesn't have to be the only thing I do, but it is one of the things I'm going to do as part of my portfolio. Okay. So thank you, Kenny.
I've got to the point where it probably won't be the only thing I do, but I've got to the point where I'm like, you know what? Most of the other stuff that I do doesn't really work out for me.
Yeah.
So that's why I appreciate Don gave me a couple of winners finally. I actually had a couple of swing trades. I just have bad luck with swing trading. Something always goes horribly wrong. I don't know.
But that's not your focus, right? So it kind of makes sense, right? We do well in the things that we do focus on and the things that we develop that, particular aptitude for. And it's just not the thing you typically do. So and that's where Kenny will use somebody like me when I come to him. And that's the beauty, right? So what he said, I'm coming up with ideas and I know not every one of my ideas are going to work. So when I can take the edge that I think I have and go to a guy like Kenny and say, hey, Kenny, like, look at this chart, man. Am I looking at this right? And if he can validate it, it just makes me feel even better that my edge, I have a pretty good probability of that working, right? And that's what we're doing, right? We're playing probabilities. That's our job, is to enter trades where the probabilities of success are high and managing the trades so that when we're wrong, we don't get wiped out. And that's the job that we have. And that's what you got to learn to do. And the more successful you are doing that, the more money you're going to make in this market. And Kenny said, you don't have to make million overnight. Like what I do, I take small gains and I allow those gains to compound over time. You know, I massively outperformed the market the last 6 months, but it wasn't like I had like one or two stocks that went up incredible amount. I took gains on multiple stocks, reinvested it, let that compound for me, right? And I can do that because I sit in front of the computer all day, right? I don't have any friends. I don't have anything else to do. So I'm in front of the computer all day long. I can take advantage of opportunities when they come up, right? So, Kenny, I hear you saying you think you're going to fade it tomorrow, right? So you think this trade, you think there's a lot of, as a day trader, that's how you look at it. You think there's some optimism coming out of the NVIDIA earnings, but you think, and you're going to be using the VWAP tomorrow, and you're going to look at a few stocks, and you're going to go, I think some of these might have popped a little bit too much, and I think they might pull back a little bit. And that's based on your experience as a 30-plus year professional from what you've seen in other instances. Do I have that right?
Right, and that could just be the beginning of the day. The fade is usually right at the open, so you'll get those profit takers who just want out at the open. You'll get that fade, and sometimes that fade becomes the fake out, shakeout, and then it returns back above VWAP, and then resumes its normal course.
So can you fake out, shake out, just so we're clear, so give people the
right here. I'll show you.
Why don't you show us one on a chart so people understand
what we witnessed today is what I thought, well, what I do still think is going to happen tomorrow. So everybody got annihilated this morning. So I came in short because I've been super bearish this market, and we were going down. And I had come in short. So this is the NQ futures. I could show you the NQ futures and the QQQ are basically the same thing. But let me show you the Qs so it's more familiar if you don't trade futures. So this is the move from today, and it was something. Today was one of the better trading days. Oh, hang on, sorry, I blew it. I'm going back too far. It was just this morning. It feels like it was a long time ago. That's how long this day was. Here we go. So, the market's been in flux. We're seeing some volatility, and, some of the products I watched, UVXY, UVIX, the VIX, finally perked up, which we got to talk more about that because I know you nailed that trade too. But, as a shorter, the reason this trade works so well, and just as any trader, is that it convinces the shorter that it's going to get worse, and the long trader. So it's in this case, it was kind of subtle. The fake out, shake out. So it breaks a recent low, and then it tries to rally, and then it breaks another new low. So it's a fake out, shake out. And
so
then
the first move, Kenny, fake out, it kind of goes up, people think it fakes people out that it's going up, and then it pulls back.
Yeah, it's the shakeout is it breaks the prior, when it breaks that prior low, then it comes right back and then breaks VWAP. So it's a fake out, shakeout, VWAP breakout. So without VWAP, I would normally wait to see, something break pre-market highs. So let's say you get the fake out, shakeout. Normally I wouldn't be buying till, up here, or even like if this is the pre-market going up here, I would wait to the break pre-market highs. VWAP now says, nah, let's get this position going on right now, because if it breaks VWAP, it's going to rip. And what was nice about this one position right here is that after it went faux show and broke the VWAP, you see how it rallied and then came back and did it again. It just broke the VWAP just by one wick. And those wicks get people out of trades, because if you're using very specific stops, that'll wick you out. And then how many times have you said, oh, man, I just sold it and the stock went up without me? Everyone said that at one point in their life. This trade is that trade. So when you're using VWAP and you see the faux show, instead of saying, oh, man, I just got out. No, get back in, because you're already identifying a new trade. You're faking them out, shaking them out, back above the VWAP, buy it back. And now you're using those two levels as you're out. You're clearly defining the risk. So look at this move. This was absolutely an algorithmic, absolute, I don't want to use such graphic terms like I usually use, but people got annihilated, because anybody that was short, like me, who thought this market might roll over today, they were destroyed. And this is an algorithmic move. This is not humans. This was just the computers just 602.50 gets you 605, 605 got you up here. And then this is what we call a blow off top, finger of God. So this is why 2025 has been by far the best trading year of my life, because you're getting this type of volatility almost every day where the shorts can get paid pre-market, the longs get paid, and then I waited and waited, just like I'm going to do tomorrow. I wait for my time. Here, that pullback was real, and then it made a new high. See that new high candle right there? That's called an engulfing bearish candle, blow off top. So it broke a new high, and then in the same candle broke the prior low. The better you get at this and you start seeing these patterns, you'll start shorting right up here. I wanted real confirmation. I want to see it break here, and it did, and we got short, and it went right through the VWAP. And look what happened to the market. We basically gave it all back and then some into what we're witnessing right now, a new faux show, bro, into the earnings. And now anybody who didn't cover their shorts, once again, has been annihilated. So I just think we're going to get sort of a replica of what we saw today, but I don't think it's going to be that extreme, because it's like whenever I get super bearish, I'm usually wrong because this market really doesn't want to go down. But I'll be definitely looking to play the fade. And what we're going to do later on tonight on my website is I'm going to show you the levels where we will probably get algorithmic retracements. And, just like, again, I shorted NVIDIA twice tonight, and I was long once. So even in this overnight session, let me show you where I traded. I don't know why I can't need my end button. I think I need a keyboard. Wow. So in this movement right here, there's your explosion. Again, I wasn't going long into an earnings report. That's just gambling and psychotic. But when you have that blow off top moment and then it broke the prior candle, I shorted it right here, 192.78, and the stock plummeted 2 points. 300 shares, that's $600. I mean, that's more than, my son just got back from work. He didn't make $600 today. I mean, that's a lot of money. And then, I knew shorting is short-lived. And then there it is. There's the fake out, shake them out. And then it starts to rally. I was like, oh, no way am I staying short. I'm covering right here. And then I went long. When it broke back above that level, I actually got paid a little bit on the upside. And then look what happened. Just traveled all the way up. And then next thing you know, I'm selling right here before that last move. But then these levels that I'll show you later, when you see a level that's become specific and you break back under that level, usually get a retrace. And again, there's another 2-point move. So as a day trader, making 2-point moves when you're only risking 50 cents, that's how you make a living. So tomorrow, all of these VWAPs will be at an elevated level. You'll see a different chart pattern. I was just trading chart patterns. Tomorrow, we're going to take the chart patterns and our recognition of those chart patterns, overlap that with the new VWAP, and that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. And I'll show you more about that later tonight.
Kenny, are you telling me that you in one day you took the same stock and you went long and short and made money? Is that what you're telling me?
That is correct. Yes.
that might be new news to some people, right? The fact that as a day trader, and again, you have to define what your objectives are to any listener, right?
Right. Yeah.
But if you want to become a day trader, that's why you need to be around somebody like Kenny, because conceptually in your head, you're not even thinking, you're thinking, if you're thinking about an investment and the long term, then you're thinking, okay, is the stock going to go, is the line of least resistance higher or is it going to be lower, right? And that's where, most traders, most retail traders have a long bias for a reason, right? And so most people are looking at stocks that they hope are going to go up over the long term. My experience is most retail traders, when I ask them to define their edge and how they determine how they go into trades, it's difficult for them to articulate it because they don't really know. They might be listening to somebody else. They might, they might look for a trending ticker somewhere and that's what they buy, but they don't. It's hard for them to really define how they think they have an edge, right? And if they do try to define it, it doesn't always sound very good, right? So that's the importance, right? You got to first determine your objectives. And if you're going to day trade, this is the type of opportunity that's available, what Kenny's talking about.
Yeah. And to your point, that's why I do a lot of talking, because
Yeah.
at 8 o'clock in the morning, I could be talking about how I'm going to crush this stock. I hate it so much. And by 11 o'clock, I'm like, yeah, let's go. It's going to the moon. You just said you were short. That was 3 hours ago, buddy.
That's right.
Old news. We're done with that short. We're on the winning side now. And that's what I think might happen. I think, again, I don't want to let my bearishness get the best of me. I'm coming in ready to rock, but I'm going to let the market tell me what to do. I do expect there to be some fading, but I think the fade will be bought, and we probably will have a bullish day. If I'm right about it all, we might, have a really crazy day. If Nvidia was to give up this entire gap, there is no coming back. Santa Claus is Christmas is canceled. Santa Claus has been left somewhere in the North Pole. If we go negative tomorrow, that will scare the living shit out of everybody out there. That would be one.
That wouldn't be good.
That would be one monster event, because that will solidify that what we may have seen highs for the year. And again, I'll believe it when I see it. So again, if it happens,
I think the probability of that is probably not high
right
now, but you never, and that's, again, we don't ever try to tell the market what to do, right? That's one thing you have to learn as a trader, right? You may have your conviction, right? But as what we have an adage that Kenny uses, I used, I know successful traders all use it, and that adage is discipline trumps conviction, right? We don't make trades based on what we think. We look for validation, and we play what the market is doing. We look for the information that the market is giving us, and then we discipline ourselves to trade off of that information. We don't come in with a preconception and trade based on, oh, I think it's going to do this, because the market doesn't care what you think. The market doesn't care what I think. The market doesn't even know I'm alive, right? So it's going to do what it's going to do. And I don't know all of the motivations of every trader that's trading in the market. That's ridiculous, right? So it can do anything it wants to do. And so our job is to study, to learn, to understand patterns, to understand things like these algorithms, to understand metrics that markets are using. And then we discipline ourselves and we follow the discipline. And again, remember that discipline trumps conviction, right? Put your preconceptions aside, right? If your preconceptions were always right, you would be on a yacht right now sailing around the world.
I was actually taught, one of the first lessons I learned was, don't come into the market with a preconceived notion of what you're going to do or what you think is going to happen, because your brain now has to, first you have to admit you're wrong, and it's hard. Your ego gets,
nobody wants to do that. Yeah.
Right. And you're coming in, you're like, oh man, and you gotta, it takes an extra couple of beats to finally realize, all right, not only am I wrong, if I'm going to trade today, I gotta do stuff that I wasn't really prepared to do. And, kind of like that short this afternoon, I was like, wow, maybe we're not going to fade today. And then next thing you know, oh, we're breaking those levels. I got to put this trade on. Yeah. So, that's a big part of it. But let's talk about, before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you what your favorite pin action will be tomorrow. I know you mentioned CoreWeave, you mentioned the VICR. What was your third one?
Yeah. All right. So I'm not in CoreWeave personally, but I think we're seeing a bit on those types of stocks after hours. A couple of stocks. Let me mention this real quick though. The sectors that I'm personally looking at, because that's one of my variables that I look at for an edge. I've come to learn through my studies and my research that it's important to understand sector rotation, right? And if you, again, for example, in the recent past, if you've been in, consumer discretionaries and that's what you've been investing in, you haven't done that well recently, right? Over the last 3 years, if you were in the AI trade and you took that entire cohort or basket of it, you did really unbelievably well, right? So understanding the sectors is part of my edge. It's part of what I do as a trader, as part of my vocation. I am constantly trying to learn what sectors the market is potentially interested in. And if I can beat the momentum players into those sectors, right, then I can really profit, right? But that takes work, it takes time, it takes reading, it takes effort. And a lot of people, I hate to say it, a lot of people don't like to do that, right? But that's what gives a person, can give a person a huge edge, right? And Kenny mentioned, I look for inflection points, inflections in sectors. Like he mentioned the uranium trade. I was in the uranium trade very early, and I don't think we're done with the uranium trade. I told Kenny I recently took profits on a lot of the stocks I was in because I was up a lot, and I thought they were moving a little bit quickly. But nuclear energy is still, 4 to 6 years out from fully being realized, right? So a lot of this is not coming to fruition yet, right? It's kind of speculative. It's where the market's going, right? But I think there are other opportunities that are more immediate, right? So one of the sectors I'm currently focused on is the AI power trade. Like, what are the companies, the compute, the amount of energy that's required to do these AI computations is exponentially higher than what we're experiencing now. And that's why you're finding all this news about all these data centers being built, right? And how are they going to be powered? For me, I love trades that involve what we refer to, right, as the picks and shovels, right? That's an adage from when people came to the West looking for gold, right? Everybody wanted to find gold and make it rich, and so they would dig for gold. And the people that were guaranteed to make the money, right? Like, you could take your chances and maybe you made it really big, maybe you didn't. But the people that consistently made money were the people that sold the picks and the shovels, right? So for me, the AI power trade is where I'm really focused. And so there's a basket of stocks that you could look at, and then there's some more kind of specialized companies as well. So Vicor is one of those. Maybe another time, maybe in the next episode, I can get into why. Well, I'll talk a little bit about it, but I don't want to get into too much because we don't have that much time. But Vicor used to be part of the NVIDIA ecosystem, and then it actually was taken out of that ecosystem, and that's why the stock dropped. If you look at the chart over a long period, that's one of the reasons it dropped. But recently, it's has some tailwinds in its favor. Recently, their last earnings was really good. They referenced the fact they moved a focus. They shifted away from G4 technology into G5, the next generation, and they had some people that were trying to use their previous technology. They were kind of pirating it, and they went after those people. And so now they're actually getting royalties from companies that are using their technology, and that royalty revenue, a lot of that goes to the bottom line. So it's really good margin, right? And so they recently announced how their royalty revenues are increasing, but they're also a provider of technology that's being used by a company that I think is going to be a big company. It's a company that's still currently private. I think next year is when they're planning to go public. It's a company called Cerebras, and you can look it up, do some research on it. They're starting to get more visibility. The CEO's been on CNBC. If you come onto our site, you can find we post some videos of relevant information. That's what we do. We share information so that people can make educated decisions. But we went in. I was into that trade prior to last earnings. I told Kenny about it. Thankfully, he told some people in his room about it, and the stock did really well.
Everybody's hero now. Yeah.
So
I like the fact that it came in big. This is a pretty substantial pullback. 80 went right back to that, low 100 went right back to the low 80s, which is kind of where it broke out from. So
right, and that pop to the 100 was right after AMD's Investor Day, and AMD talked about the technology they're using, and now there's some speculation that technology may be partially sourced from Vicor. right? It hasn't been validated yet, but that was one of the reasons you saw that additional pop, right? The recent one was
Yeah.
that was the day after AMD's Investor Day,
Well, I'll tell you,
right?
this company was so proud of what they were about to release. They pre-announced it like
Yeah,
2 days before their announcement. It was
the
crazy.
day
They
before they
basically,
announced the royalty revenues,
yeah,
right?
yeah, they're like, "Oh man, we want to tell you so much about how much money we're making. We're releasing our earnings 2 days from now, but we'll give you a taste right now." And it popped 7 points that day, and then tacked on another 20.
Yeah, that was interesting because usually you have like a quiet period before your
Right.
earnings, right?
Yeah.
And they came out and they said our royalty revenues are up. So I think that Cerebras, if you go online, it's some people debate it, but there are some actual videos that show how fast the Cerebras chip is. It's a very specialized chip, but it's huge. It's not like a little chip; it's a big chip, and their
Be more of a
computers.
chunk, I guess, not a chip.
It's supposed to be faster than NVIDIA and NVIDIA chips. And that's where, NVIDIA people will say, I don't think that's true, but there's some online videos that show the actual speed at which and we, again, if you, maybe we'll try to I'll try to post some here in the future, but in our room, we post some of these videos. This is what we do. So I think Cerebras, when that goes public and people know, so you could play Vicor as kind of an indirect play, Vicor's public. It's kind of an indirect play for Cerebras, which is
Right.
still private, right? So that's another potential tailwind, and they're talking about starting to realize revenues either the end of this quarter or into next quarter. I think it's probably going to be next quarter, but that's going to be a tailwind. And
Yeah.
if people start learning,
I'd like the stock more if it had some volume. That's the only thing. You can't really day trade it. It's kind of difficult because it has a big spread. It's illiquid. You kind of can't really get a feel for it intraday. But tomorrow, I'll be definitely looking at this one.
it pulled back with it. I told you it's a semiconductor company, so it pulled back like that sector has pulled back a bit. So I'm in it longer term. So again, I'm a swing trader. I haven't really I haven't reduced my position size because I think it's a long term play. Now, if the market starts to really crack open, then then everything changes, right? I have to factor that into my calculus, right? But at the moment, I think this thing still has some room to go. So that's one. Another company that's on the energy supply side that I've established a bigger position in is a company. The symbol is EOSE, and they just announced earnings. They had an announcement after hours today that I think the DOE has an investment in them, and the stock's up like almost 7% after hours.
Hey, by the way, so this stock, I was familiar with this one beforehand because this was one of the what I call an Andy Dufresne stock that
Mhm.
pops, drops. And what you're looking at, again, when I show you VWAP, and I'll show you more charts when we're done with the podcast, um, any time frame you want. We built an algo that just grabs as much data as you want. And the red lines are where I traded this stock, but here I'll just clean it up for you. It's nothing else is on my chart except this orange line. So chart pattern recognition. This is your Andy Dufresne. We also have what's called a Kardashian bottom. We'll talk more about that later. But once you break over these, it's a 3-year VWAP, and then it held it just like if it was a day trade. So if it's a day trade, you break VWAP, you hold it from on top, you got yourself a new reason to buy. And then obviously this thing went parabolic as of late. We were hip to this stock back when it was $1.50 at $2, just like most of these stocks. Because again, the reason I like being a bear is I like when stocks come out of hibernation, if you will. And those are my best long trades because I don't short. And I don't really make too much money as a shorter anymore, except for some fades as a day trader. Most of the time, you want to be long. This is a perpetual bull market, and it's just only getting stronger and stronger. So yeah, EOSC, big fan of the stock, but it's gone parabolic. I gotta say,
It went ahead of itself, I think, a little bit.
yeah,
But again, what we do and what I tell everybody, I do my research, I develop my edge, and I make my investments based on probabilities. I'm not always right, right? So always, we recommend, do your own diligence as well, right? And if the trade doesn't play out, I protect myself to make sure that it's not a catastrophic loss. Like I said, I'm optimistic, but I'll continue to manage the trade. And to Kenny's point, one of the things you're going to have to learn to be successful as a trader is you have to check your ego at the door, right? If you think you always have to be right, you're going to have a problem. And learning how to get detached from your ego, in my mind, is a critical aspect to being a successful trader. And that's a psychological component. But I think, honestly, I think 80 to 90% of succeeding as a trader is psychological. So I work really hard to develop a psychological edge. And that's why I have a system so that I don't get crushed when I'm wrong, right? And if I don't get crushed when I'm wrong, it allows me to go into a trade and not hesitate, right? Which you can lose, you can miss out when you hesitate. But if you have a system to protect yourself, you're not afraid to go into a trade.
So
And
let's
that's
talk,
a
so
critical part.
talk to me about tomorrow. So when you're coming in, you're feeling obviously bullish about the market. Nvidia's out of the way. Are you putting trades on at the open? You know, just based on I like this stock. Are you gonna let see what this market? You know?
I'm not day trading, right? So I'm more looking to swing. So I'm looking for confirmation. I want to see how the market does. You know, does it fade? Do we start seeing? You know, how strong is that? Because market moves on psychology, right, and sentiment, right? We know that. When you have a risk-on market, you could have a stock valued at one price, and the same exact company, if the market decides it wants to take risk off, is going to be valued at a completely different number. Right. So what I'm going to be looking at tomorrow, I want to see what the market, I want to see what it tells me. Like, is this Nvidia trade, what I mentioned earlier, that call from that analyst, Dan Morgan, is that what the market in general, is this what they're feeling? Like, there's still going to be some questions out there about, especially the AI trade, because I think the AI trade is what's holding everything up, right? I think the market, the amount of gains we've had in the indices, you know, AI has just been a considerable part of that, right? A major part of that. So if that trade starts to unwind, then what does that mean, right? And if that trade unwinds, does it pull the entire market down, which I think is a high probability, or will money rotate into other sectors? And by the way, over the last couple of weeks, for those that do study this every day, you may have noticed, while a lot of tech stocks pulled back, the biotech's actually done well over the last few weeks, right? But you wouldn't know that by looking at the index, right? The market pulled back. If you're in tech and that's all you know, then it's not been a good couple weeks, a good week, right? But if you were in biotechs, some biotechs have done really well. The XBI has held up strongly, right?
Yeah,
but the XBI was dead for four plus years, right? That's what I'm talking about. You have to learn how to look at, sometimes on a more granular level, and you have to say, hey, if money's coming out of the AI trade, does that mean the whole market, the risk moves to risk off, and everything gets pulled, or will it rotate? These are questions we have to answer, right? I don't propose to have those answers because I don't know what the market's going to do, right? So what I'm doing though is I'm watching it constantly and I'm reacting to what I see. And that's what I'm going to be looking at tomorrow. I'm looking at those sectors. And then I'm still, I don't think we're in a situation where the market's going to crash. I'm not there. There are plenty of people out there that'll tell you the market's going to crash. I think, and part of this I've talked about previously, I think one variable that a lot of people overlook is just how big the retail trading sector has become. The amount of market participation of the retail sector back in 2000 was like 4%. Now it's up to like 20%, right? And these are people that are, again, mostly long biased, right? So the market, if the market is exuberant, if it is irrational, it could probably stay that way longer than we expect. So I don't tell the market, you're overpriced. The market should drop. It has to drop. It might sound like a smart guy if I say that, but that doesn't make me money, right? What makes me money is studying the market, listening to it, and then reacting to it. So what I'm doing, I'm staying nimble. Like my strategy, I'm staying nimble. Since I'm in front of my computer every day, all day, and I post real-time news on the site we launched all day long, so people don't have to do it. They can just watch my feed and they can see the news. They don't even have to So I look for catalysts every day, right? I'm looking for, is the market cooperative? And then if so, is there news that comes out on a stock that could be a catalyst and I could take advantage? If I could make 10% on a move in an hour, right? Like, think about it, Kenny, right? As a money manager, you could have said, 8% a year is a great return, right? What if you could make 10% in an hour, right? And then what if you could do that over and over?
Right.
Right? So that's how I'm doing it. So Vicor, EOSE are two stocks that I like. Another one that I just entered, and I'm again, this is part of my strategy. One of the things I look for is insider buying. And there's a company that recently, the CEO and CFO, I like when a CFO buys more than when a CEO buys. Because in my opinion, the CFO, if anybody knows numbers, the CFO knows the numbers, right?
Yeah.
They know the financial aspect of things. And both the CEO and CFO made big purchases in this company. The symbol is FRSH. And so I bought it predominantly, like there's some things they're doing. They announced a new product, right? But I'm in that. It's not a major holding for me, but I'm in that stock, and I want to see why did these guys, they both put in, I think, like close to $2 million each. Why did they do that, right? And it may not pop tomorrow, right? So I'm not day trading it, but I have a position in it, and I'm going to be watching it. And that's, that to me is a good validation. It may not play out, and I have to be ready for that. But the fact that these two guys have bought in massively into the company, you don't normally do that unless something is positive, right?
A very limited risk here.
Yes.
You know why? Because it's held 1050 about 5 times.
Yep.
Breaks 1050, the stock's going to zero.
Yeah, what I'm looking for, to be honest, the shorter term moving at the 8-day moved above the 50, right? It's still living below the 200. I want to see the stock get over the 200-day. That's what I really want to see.
What you're looking at on my chart, this is a 10-year VWAP, and again, I like this is basically an Andy Dufresne, and the tops are kind of like the Kardashian bottom. So I don't hate this. I just don't like these last 5 or 6 months. They bleed this thing, and it just looks like it's about to roll over and die.
Yeah, and again, that's why you manage a trade, right?
Right.
Again, I'm not always 100% right. So what I do is I go in based on an edge, and then I manage it. So if it goes sideways on me, I don't get hurt, right? So, but I think this isn't a play that happened again when CEO and CFO buy. It doesn't mean it's going to pop overnight. They're probably buying in anticipation of something moving forward. There's a stock, my buddy and I, we talk every day, and we bought a stock. It was 60 cents. Symbol was RLMD, I think it was. And there was really good insider buying. We bought it at like 60 cents. I ended up, popped after the insider buying. I sold like 40% of my stake at a profit to secure my gains. And then I ended up selling it. I made, I did okay, right? That's what I do. I take my profits and I move on. That stock is now like over $4.
And actually, it looks like it's going higher. We actually traded this stock.
Did you?
Yeah. If there's red lines on my screen, those are where I traded and I placed my stop. So that's why I leave these lines up there in perpetuity. So every once in a while, we'll go to a chart. Like when you said RLMND, I had no idea I traded this stock, and here I did. And I traded the shit out of it, apparently. And now, again, this is an Andy Dufresne. I mean, usually when stocks go under 250, they're never coming back. This is unique. So now I put this one on my watch list because there's something going on here. I probably wouldn't want to buy it into it tomorrow on a whim here at 420, but if it pulls back and holds the 250 area, that's really significant in the world of trading.
I mean, I was in that thing at like 64 cents, bro.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's when they was buying, insider buying. You could, whenever you go back, if you pull a company, whenever the insiders were buying, that's when I bought it.
And let me give you a couple that I think are gonna, again, stick with the Nvidia verse. I'm a fan of NVTS. The stock has already crashed. There has been rumors of this company actually getting taken over by Nvidia. That's been out there. This thing has had some really great news stories, and they've had some monstrous moves. but it tends to just give it all back. But now that it's given it all back and it's holding that, this is a 10-year VWAP again, you can see how it just got smashed down from 18 bucks all the way back to 7. This might be a nice play. And this stock is damn liquid. It has weekly options and half-point increments. We've done very well trading this stock. I haven't done well because I'm always on the other side when it rolls over on my swings, but it has been a really good stock to trade. And you mentioned CoreWeave. Big fan again, because again, it's not really about the company for me. I know enough about it, but I like the fact that it just broke down. And tomorrow, when stocks are about to roll over, like this one, this was about to probably go back to, $64. So the shorts were getting really excited. When the shorts are excited and they overstay their welcome, that's when you get these monster squeezes. So I'll look for a long on CoreWeave as well tomorrow. But if you want to wrap this up, any last words, my friend?
No, just again, we'll put the description of a new website in a link in the description. And I am actually going to post. There is another stock I'm going to post there tomorrow. Just as a little tease.
Ooh, nice.
But please, we're building again. What my goal is with the new site is I want to build a community of people that we are there together and share information to increase the probabilities of us being successful. And that's my goal. And I'm trying to replicate kind of what Kenny's done, because I've been to your room. I know the people that are in your room, and I know what you guys do and how you guys work together to again, improve your probabilities of success. And I admire it. And I want to try to replicate it in a different way for what I use as my edge. And again, that's the beauty of it, right? Not everybody does the same thing. Not everybody's going to be a day trader. But if you are going to be a day trader, let me tell you this. If I was going to be a day trader, there's nobody else I'd want to be following more than Kenny Glick. So
thank you.
He's
I'm
the
also a
grandfather.
silver geek. I'm a silver geek. I keep buying every week for the last 6 years. Look at me. I'm like, I'm a man. I'm the man now. People
You are.
ask me about silver.
You're going to be like a whale. You're a whale now.
Yeah. I'm listening to 50 myself.
Yeah.
All right, listen, everybody. I appreciate you guys tuning in. This is the first time we kind of did it. We sort of did it live. But what we're going to do now is we just recorded this in front of an audience, and now we're going to take this and
let me mention that going forward, two things that we want to look to do is we want to start taking questions during the podcast. By the way, shout out to Kenny's group. Unbelievable people. Hopefully, he mentioned he's going to keep the room open for 48 hours. Hopefully, you can stay in there, get to know some of the people. Shout out to everybody, man. Love those guys. So we do want to start having people asking us questions. And then the other thing we're going to do, we talked about an edge, and different people have different edges. You've gotten to know us a little bit. What we want to do is we're going to start bringing in maybe some guests as well to talk about what they do to develop an edge, right? And all of this is designed to help people understand the importance of developing systems, the importance of being around people that are knowledgeable, the importance of how you can grow your network to improve your probability of success, okay? So again, if you are a day trader though, please follow Kenny, at least get to know him, watch the podcast, go to his room, visit the room, and again, learn how the VWAP works, because it's made me money, and I'm not a day trader, and it makes me money. So if it makes me money, it can make anybody money, okay? And thank you, Kenny, for your time as always.
You got it, man.
So, and looking forward to we'll keep you posted. Again, now that we have some things behind us, we should be hopefully doing this a little more regularly. Okay.
Cool. All right, listen, if you guys are out there watching this for the first time, my email again is kennyglick@AOL.com. We are doing something live tonight, and I will be doing it live Thursday and Friday. So if you catch this tonight or tomorrow morning, email me anyway. I'll send you the link as fast as humanly possible. But we always do live stuff. We do this Thursday night thing. Today we're doing a special Wednesday night broadcast because of NVIDIA, and I'm going out tomorrow to party. So, all right. I'll see you guys soon.
I don't have any friends, so Kenny's the one going out, just to be
We're
clear.
bringing Don to Vegas, by the way. You're going to have a whole new group of friends.
There you go.
All right.
Man. Have a good one.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching.